I'm doing a series of videos on locations that I feel like may be locations for cities in the Book of Mormon. I've done several videos so far. Today I'm going to focus on the Charleston, West Virginia area, which I do think was a location of one of the cities in the Book of Mormon. And I'm going to go ahead and share some of that information with you by sharing the screen. So first, let's look at the locations that I think fit Hopewell cities that relate to the Book of Mormon. Now, if this is a Heartland geography, so if you take a Heartland geography, then the Hopewell civilization, the Hopewell culture, it fits the right time frame for the Book of Mormon and is in the eastern United States. Now, some people think that the Hopewell didn't have cities, but in fact, there are a number of locations that appear to have been cities that existed at the time of the Book of Mormon. And these are the ones that I have identified so far. And I've done videos on many of these in the past. So, for example, down here, Poverty Point, I've done a video on that one. Pinson Mounds in Tennessee, I've done a video on that one. I've not done one yet on the Old Stone Fort. I've done one on Fort Ancient. I've done one up in the Chillicothe, Ohio area. I've done one on the Marietta, Ohio area, one on the Ben's Run, West Virginia area, one on the Grave Creek, Moundsville, West Virginia area. I've done one on the Bluff Point Stoneworks. I have not done one yet on the Newark, Ohio area. And today we're going to do one on the Charleston, West Virginia area, which is here right along the Kanawha River in West Virginia. The Ohio River comes down through here, and then southeast of the Ohio River is the Cana River, which is one of the main tributaries of the Ohio River, which flows northwest up past Charleston, West Virginia, to join the Ohio River there. And in that Charleston, West Virginia area, along the Cana River, um, there are, well, let's go ahead and just take a look at it actually. So go ahead to Charleston. Let's go ahead on in. Location here. Okay. Okay, so this is the Ohio River coming down. This is the Kanawha River flowing northwest. It flows through very hilly country. And because the country is so hilly and difficult, it's not very passable. The locations for towns and cities are really almost exclusively along the valley areas. At times, this is a broad valley, and when you get these flat areas, that's where you then have the cities build up. Let's get down there a little closer, and you can flip it to 3D. Um, you can kind of see a little bit of how hilly everything is. And then down through here is the Kanawha River. And then you have this flat, wide valley, and which continues to the west. The locations we're going to focus on for where the city was in the time of the Book of Mormon. It was just west of this Charleston, West Virginia area, several miles towards Dunbar. And all of this valley along there had quite a number of earthworks and other things pointing to the existence of a city. There's a famous mound in Charleston called the Creel Mound. And if you take a quick search for it, you'll find it. So the Creel Mound, also called the South Charleston Mound in the Charleston, West Virginia area, sort of looks like this. It's an Adena style burial mound, 33 feet tall, and it is thought to have been built in that 250 to 150 BC time frame, which would sort of fit the Mulekite era just before the Nephites joined them in that 200 150 BC area. It was a large mound. It was located between two earthwork sacred circles. There's a little bit of information about the height of it and the shape of it. And This was excavated in the 1800s by the Smithsonian. We'll pull up that citation and we'll look at a little bit of information about that. At the base of the mound were 11 skeletons, a man in the middle, and then 10 other skeletons around him. The man in the middle was 6 foot 8 3/4 inches tall, so very large man. And then this was part of a group of the areas. The group was called the Cana Valley Mounds for several miles, in particular towards the west or downstream of Charleston, West Virginia. There are more than 50 large mounds in the area, 3 to 35 feet in height. There are a number of earthworks. There's also a fortification, and there are some indications of graded roadways in the location as well. Okay, so that's sort of the Wikipedia overview. If you go to the Creel Mound, there's a sign there, and it gives a little bit more information and a picture related to the digging in the mound. The mound, there's a burial mound, and then there are some additional burials at the top, but the base of the mound, as I said, was a large skeleton pointing towards the north, five on the, and then 10 skeletons around him, five on the left, five on the right. There's a little bit of information about the mound. If you want to read through it, you can. The artifacts up and down from this mound and surrounding mounds do fit the Adena and Hopewell cultures, and a lot of the same types of artifacts found in other Hopewell sites. For example, pendants, copper bracelets. The bracelets are similar to the types of bracelets, for example, found with the Back Creek stone. Shell beads, copper fragments, mica fragments. All these are similar to the types of things that seem to have been accumulated and collected by the Hopewell. A number of points and blades, uh, copper items, pipes, and then this over here is a sandstone weight disc. Now, I had done a video on the Armstrong Mountain Fort, and in that it described a number of discs that were weights that were multiples of each other, and it may have indicated a sort of a system of weights that could have been used for measures or something to that effect. Um, this says 500 BC, but like I said, it's sometime after 500 BC. There's no secure dating that I'm aware of for this particular mound. Most thought it was in the 150 to 200 or so BC timeframe. Okay, and then also another sign that's available related to the mounds up and down the Cana Valley near Charleston, as it says here, between 500 BC to AD 150. So it seems to have been occupied and used throughout that time frame. In this site, you'll definitely see some Mulekite type potential Adena culture. Could also be some late Jaredite, and then a number of Hopewell type things that sort of fit the Nephite culture. But as it says here, there's an extensive complex that spread over several miles. Now, the Smithsonian archaeologist Cyrus Thomas, he was sort of the head of the Smithsonian in the 1880s or so, and kind of leading some excavations and surveys of the mounds and the Hopewell culture. He kind of dubbed this the ancient Cana city. And he's, like it says here, from 500 BC on to about AD 500, 150. Extends west from Charleston towards Dunbar, as indicated before. Graded roadways, earthen mounds, earthen enclosures. There are also stone heaps. Those could have been like stone altars or something to that effect as well. And then at this time, as it says here, only a few mounds remain, with the Creel Mound being the largest, best maintained of the mounds, with a park around it now. I have this cited because what this does is this was a study, and this, I think this was in the 1970s or so, that a study about the um, Adena archaeology and focusing on the Charleston, West Virginia Kanawha area. And what this does is it shows that there was a mix of cultures there. So, as it says here, when they studied the Cana Valley mounds around that Charleston area, it was their conclusion that most of the mounds were not strictly Adena, but products of mixed Adena Hopewell influence. Again, I think the Hopewell were the Nephites. The Adena were likely Mulekites, potentially some of the end of the Jaredites as well. But it says it's not solely Adena. They said that some of it looks like it was inspired by Hopewellian stimuli upon an indigenous Adena population. So, in other words, they're saying that there were some Adena things there. The Hopewell came and mixed, and kind of that culture took over. That fits the Book of Mormon, where you had the Mulekites in an area, and then right in that 150 to 200 BC time frame, according to the Book of Mormon, would have been when Mosiah led his people, the Nephites, up. They found the people of Zarahemla. Mosiah becomes king. The Nephites sort of take over culturally, adopting, melding in with the Mulekites. It really fits well with the Hopewell joining, mixing in, and taking over the Adena culture. And I think that that's where the best archaeological fit for the Book of Mormon is. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go to the um, Smithsonian survey and excavation for the site. This is the best description of it. So this is 1884. The Smithsonian did a report on the mound builders and its surveys in the United States. Cyrus Thomas was who led it. And then the part for West Virginia is when joined together with the surveys for the Ohio mounds. So if you jump to the Ohio area, Squire and Davis did a much more in-depth report on it. Here, the Smithsonian kind of goes back over a lot of the Ohio stuff, which we can skip over. And then when you get down to about page 51 or so, they go into West Virginia. So he says, passing into West Virginia, then they talk about the Grave Creek Mound. I've done a separate video on the Grave Creek Mound in Moundsville, West Virginia, so we're going to go ahead and skip that too, because that's covered better elsewhere. But then what we have then is his report of the Smithsonian's excavation of and survey of the number of mounds found in that Charleston, West Virginia area. He starts with a large mound near Charleston. This large mound was about 35 feet high, 175 feet wide. It was a double mound where it was a lower burial mound and then a new burial mound built on top of it, adding on top of it. And he talks about how they explored the mound. I'll go ahead and skip some of this, but it talks about how they went through the stones, and then they get to as they go down, they get to a skeleton, and they find a number of skeletons. They find some artifacts that kind of fit the Hopewell style. And then he also describes that at the sort of the middle of the mound at the bottom, there's sort of a burial vault. And in it, there was a man, unusually large size, he said, measuring 7 foot 6 inches in height and 19 inches between the shoulder sockets. I Googled how big a normal man's shoulder distance there would be, and it looks like for a normal man, it would be about 16 inches or so. So it kind of fits with the large size man that they're talking about there. Most of the skeletons that they find are normal size, but there are some very large ones, which is of interest for the Book of Mormon, because the Book of Mormon describes some very large men. Okay, and then he describes some of the things that were found there. He mentions that a black flint spear point for a weapon. He describes that there was some kind of textile fabric. Now, many people will say that, oh, well, the ancient Native Americans didn't have textiles, but they did. In a separate video related to Chillicothe, Ohio, They found, in particular, some textiles, remnants of fragments where you can still see some of the designs and styles that were used. Here, we don't have a better description, just that there was some kind of textile fabric used there. There's also and a lot of people that say, well, there's no signs of cement or anything in North America. That's not true either. In fact, at a number of the sites in the burials, there are descriptions of using cement-like substances. And here's one he describes encased in a massive mortar-like substance. So there are indications of it. It's just that it's not well known archaeologically. But in these finds that fit the Book of Mormon time frame, they were using some cement-like substances, what we would call cement-like anyway. And then some of the artifacts that were described, they're pictures of pipes and things that are found. And then we get to the Creel Mound. Now, the Creel Mound, he says, is another mound, large size in the same locality. And then he has a plate or map for it. So this is the sort of survey of the region that he discussed. Okay, so here, this direction is north. Charleston would be up this way. This is downstream from the Kanawha, and then it's actually kind of flowing west, and then um, a little bit more towards kind of a northwest. And this is a several mile area. What these are here, so these each of these are mounds, and it's over 50 large mounds throughout this multiple mile area. And there are a number of enclosures that were surveyed out throughout the whole area. Some were large enclosures. And then the Creel Mound is this number one mound right here, which is described as being between two nearly circular enclosures. And he has a bigger drawing of that, and then a number of those, which could be altars, these rock heaps. And then there are also signs of graded ways. Here's an example. This was a 25-foot wide, a graded way that went down towards the river. He has this on plate 6 or 7, this other one. So this is the Creel Mound again. Again, this is the 35-foot high, 33-foot high, 170 some feet wide Creel Mound where the large skeleton was found and the others. This is the graded way. Now, the graded way is like a road and it goes down towards the river. This is similar culturally to what's found at a number of the other Hopewell sites. For example, in Marietta, Piketon has another one in Ohio. And it goes down towards the river. Now, this is on the upper terrace. There's a lower terrace to the river, and this is was the river flow in the 1880s when the survey was done. And so the fact that the graded way only goes down to this area may indicate that that lower terrace was filled up with a wider or larger river. The Creel Mound was between two circular enclosures with an opening. One faces this way with a mound outside, and then almost an identical one, but facing the other way with a mound outside and then a mound in the center. Now, this is structurally very similar to what is at the Great Circle in Newark, Ohio, which is a Hopewell. It's a well-known Hopewell site. The Hopewell's Newark earthworks kind of start with a great circle, which is a lot like this, nearly a circle with an opening, with a ditch. As you can see, there's a ditch there or a moat. This one on the inside, and then a central mound. If you're not familiar with it, you can go look it up. The Great Circle. The Great Circle is much wider. The Great Circle at Newark is 1,200 feet in diameter, so it encloses about 30 acres, 23 football fields worth. So it's a much bigger one at Newark. The ones in Charleston were 200 some feet. I think he said 220 feet in diameter, so significantly smaller, but they were the same design of not quite a circle and then sort of a mound in the middle. Okay, so going back again, so the circle's there. Okay, so he kind of describes that context. He talks about how those circle enclosures were 220 feet in diameter with an inside ditch and so forth. It's a question, why would they have that design? Some people think that it might have related to, it was likely a sacred space, something to that effect. Some people think, it's a circle with an entrance, maybe could relate to symbolically the womb, a pre-existence, or um, I don't know. So it could be a ceremonial sacred space of some form. Okay, now we'll skip some of the other descriptions there, but as they got down into the Creel Mound, we saw uh, that description better at the other site. So I'll go ahead and skip over that. He has the surveys they've laid out. If you're interested in going to his report, it has their excavations of a number of these other mounds. Most of these were burial mounds. There are some interesting things in them. So, for example, one of the mounds, the individual has sort of using a leaf-shaped knife. Um, and then, but there's no picture of that. And then numbers of shells and things like that. In addition, there are a couple of buried altars. This fits, I did a separate video on altar mounds in Ohio, which had appeared to have altars that could fit um, the type that would have been used with the law of Moses for sacrifices, but which were then covered over and buried and covered over to make a what looks like a burial mound, but it's covering up an altar. It could be sort of a dignified burial or decommissioning of a mosaic altar. But there are a couple of mounds in this Charleston area that are like that. So mound numbers 23 and 24 are examples. He describes those excavations. He describes the altar. He uses scare quotes on the word altar, but the altars that were found down in there. He also has descriptions of the altars, how they are sort of for example, this one hemispherical, 2 feet in diameter, hollowed in the shape of a shallow basin or mortar. They could tell that there had been fire on it till burned to a bright red, and then there are ashes. So anyway, it appears to have been some, they call it an altar or at least something else that they were burning things on. And then a little bit more on the enclosures. And then he also takes some time to say that culturally it was pretty clear that the mound builders in the Cana Valley in West Virginia seem to relate a lot, close relation to those that were in Ohio. And in particular, he says down here, let's see, let me get to it. Anyway, he expresses conviction that during the mound building age, which would be during the Book of Mormon time frame for us, that there was a powerful tribe or association of closely allied tribes that occupied the Ohio Valley region, and that among the chief locations or chief seats or areas for this large civilization were in this Kanawha area. This is the Charleston, West Virginia we're talking about. The Scioto area, this would be that Chillicothe, South Central Ohio area that we've talked about before, and then the little Miami valleys, and that would be sort of in that Cincinnati to Dayton, Ohio valley range where the Fort Ancient is and some of the other sites there. Okay, and so we can go ahead and end that one, and those are just the maps again. Okay, so here's just a picture of one of the excavations in West Virginia of one of these burial mounds as they got to the bottom of it. And then let's also talk about that nearby there was a fortification. Now, this fortification is west of the Charleston area. It's in the area of St. Albans, um, West Virginia, and it's at a horseshoe bend of the Coal River, about 2 miles before the Coal River meets with the Kanawha River. And I have that located here you can see this map. So I had done a separate video on fortifications that sort of fit and meet the Book of Mormon's descriptions of fortifications in the Book of Mormon. And just west of Charleston, West Virginia, is the St. Albans area, and the Coal River comes up and around, and there's this sort of horseshoe bend spot. And there was a description of a hilltop fortification there that enclosed about 15 to 20 acres on a bluff overlooking that's on this horseshoe bend. And if we could actually take a look at that in Google Earth if you want, let's go ahead to that St. Albans area. Again, it took us to just west of the Charleston, West Virginia area. We'll back out. So this is the Kanawha River flowing this way. So this sort of northwest of Charleston. And then you get to this St. Albans area, and the Coal River kind of winds around. And then you get to this spot about 2 miles before the confluence with the Cana River. And you have this bluff that was there. And we'll go ahead and get a little closer. You can see that. And we can go to 3D if you want. You can kind of see that this location. Apparently, on this bluff in this horseshoe area, there was a fortification, 15 to 20 acres in size. And so this would have been sort of a hilltop fortification nearby that they could use for defensive purposes. All right, and I think we can go ahead and stop the sharing there. Okay, so in summary, the Charleston, West Virginia area is one of the more significantly populated areas in the time of the Book of Mormon. I think it fits one of the Book of Mormon cities. And so it's a site that there should be further study on. It shows both Adena and Hopewell cultures, which would sort of indicate a Mulekite city that was then later occupied and used by the Nephites as well. The cultural similarities with that West Virginia area to Ohio kind of shows that the Nephites extended down through that Cana River Valley area. I've done a separate video proposing that Cana River, which is a northwest flowing river that's a tributary to the Ohio River, that perhaps could be the head of the riverside. And so in one geographical interpretation, I'm looking at this Charleston, West Virginia area as perhaps an area that fits sort of the land of Manti or city of Manti, which is south of the central Nephite complexes along the head of the riverside. But geographically, everything is sort of a work in progress right now still. All right, I look forward to your comments and questions. I encourage you to like and subscribe. And as I continue to do this further research into locations that may fit the Book of Mormon. Thanks.